Stop the Feelings. That's a great series title. On emotions. And I'm an emotional person. Okay, so I feel ready for this message. But I'm an emotional person, maybe not in the way that we use that word. Because sometimes I think when we describe people as emotional, we usually have kind of a negative connotation to it, right? My spouse is really emotional. Oh, my kids, they're so emotional, right? And it often means that they're sad all the time. You never know what you're gonna get, maybe a little bogged down in life. But that is not the correct. I'm feeling like this might be distracting. Maybe go like this. Are y'all still with me? Or are you just thinking about that noise that I keep making? Okay, let's carry on. That's not the right word, or not the right way to use that word, emotional. Because there are lots of emotions, several emotions that we will experience and have throughout our day. There's not just one emotion. I mean, certainly we will experience sadness, of course, but there's emotions like happiness and excitement. Sometimes when John and I are talking, and we're talking about something that gets me a little hyped, all of a sudden my voice starts to get louder and louder. And John will lovingly stop me and say, "Are you yelling?" I'll say, "No, I'm not yelling." This is how I talk. In fact, my mom is Italian, so if I was talking to her at this decibel level, she would say, "Speak up." You know, in my family, parties were loud, but not because we were yelling at each other. We were just talking. Just the other day, we were having a quiet morning on the couch as a family, but my daughter had a friend over, and she's a friend that we know very well from our small group, but she's very quiet. And even talks really quiet, so you can hardly hear what she's saying. But her name's Rosie. We just love her to death. But here we are having our quiet morning routine as we do, but now there's someone new in the house. And as John and I start to talk about our day, what it's going to entail, the birthday party we're going to go to, then we're going to head to church, and then we get to go out to dinner with some of our best friends. Apparently, I got a little excited, because my voice started to get louder and louder. My hands started to get outstretched even more and more until John pointed out that Rose was staring at me. And he leans over, as he does. He's lucky it's playful. And he says, "She's not yelling. She's just the way that she talks." You know, and it's like, I am an emotional person. I get excited. I talk with my hands. I talk loud sometimes. I'm not yelling. I'm easily excited. I cried during worship. I cried during that video of blessing the block. My gosh, I am moved by things to tears. I cry when I'm sad. I cry when I'm excited. I'm an emotional person. To be emotional is to be human, isn't it? To be emotional, in fact, is to be like Jesus. And when we gather together in a space like this, isn't that the goal? To grow in our relationship with God by looking a little bit more like Jesus, to do as Jesus did. Over the course of the next few weeks, we'll be tackling different emotions and how to find God through them. And today, we're going to start with a big one, and it's the emotion of hurt. Have you ever felt the emotion of hurt? Maybe hurt is actually what you walked in here with today. You're currently hurting. There are many ways that we use that word, hurt, to describe. And the two main ways, though, is physical pain. My knee hurts, my head hurts, my fingers hurt. Or emotional pain, meaning deep sadness. I was trying to think of the first time that I ever felt hurt. And physical pain, I can recall like that. My earliest memory is kindergarten. We had this huge willow tree in my neighborhood, and when you're swinging from a willow tree, you're confident until your hands start to slip and you fall on your bottom. Hurts. I got a concussion playing like hide and seek tag. I was trying to make my way to the base, and I got there, but then I decided to jump off, and I fell and hit my head. I remember that. I was learning how to play hockey, how to skate, and I was really good at stopping on the right side, but I was not capable of doing that on the left side. So Dad took me to the rink, and we started doing these drills, and then I saw my friend here and my friend there, and pretty soon there's like a group of us. And so we decided to play tag, because that's what you do when you have ice skates on. And I fell. And someone ran over my pinky finger with their ice skate. I remember that very clearly. I grew up playing softball, and I was like a lefty slap hitter, which means you kind of run as the ball's coming towards you, and you lay it somewhere on the field, and you hope to beat out the throw. And so the amount of times that I got hit in my shoulder, my elbow, my knee, my legs, a lot. Physical pain I could recall easily, but emotional pain. When's the first time that I felt that deep sadness? It was 8th grade. In my 7th grade year, I felt on top of the world. I had grown up from kindergarten to 7th and 8th grade, going to a small Catholic school, and all my friends, we'd grown up together. 7th grade was awesome. And then the summer of my 8th grade year, I didn't get any calls from friends. It was silent. I had no social calendar. And I played sports and did things in the summertime, but that had no bearing on my friendships in school because none of them went to my school. So I show up to 8th grade, and this mystery of why I had no friends, no one cared to tell me why. They just didn't talk to me. I expressed my hurt at home, of course, but it didn't change my circumstances at school, no matter how loved and cared for I was at home. I've had experiences at work that have caused me hurt, experiences in my relationships, closest friends and family. Don't we find ourselves sometimes being hurt by them more than strangers? Or how about when we open up our phone, start to scroll social media? How many of you are hurt by something you see on social media? That's a reality for us. Just recently, I saw a post on social media by a person who was a really dear friend of mine. We used to play music together, and he posted something that indirectly expressed how he doesn't miss that time in his life at all. A time that I was a part of. My husband and I cared for and loved this person in that season, and just like that, poof, gone. When we're physically hurt, we do whatever it takes, don't we? To relieve the pain, get after that physical ailment, but what do we do when we are emotionally hurt? If you're anything like me, you go the route of ignoring it. Just ignore it. Where you think that you've pushed those feelings down far enough that it's gone. Except I know that it's not gone when I start saying things like, it's fine. I'm fine. I'll be fine. Maybe for you, the hurt consumes you. It's all you can talk about. It's all you can think about. And there's not much resolve or action taken. Both are normal responses to hurt, but neither are helpful, right, in getting us through it. So the question I want to help us through today is, how do we find God? How do we find God in the midst of our hurt? And to help us answer this question, I want to anchor into a story. That's why I have a chair. We're all going to sit back. We're going to anchor into this story. And my hope is that as we unpack this story together, we would find ourselves in it as it pertains to dealing with hurt and finding our way through it, finding God in the midst of it. And the story today is about Jesus and his best friend Lazarus. And Lazarus' two sisters, Martha and Mary. But first, here's what we need to do. We need to set the scene. Every story has a good scene to be set. We're going to be in the Gospel of John. And what you need to know about John, the writer John, is that he's quite a novelist. He goes into details that the other gospel writers don't really go into. And this story of Lazarus, in fact, isn't found in the other three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Before we even meet Lazarus, Jesus has been doing his ministry for 33 years. John, the writer, highlights 6 signs or miracles of Jesus, including turning water into wine, feeding those 5,000 plus people with 5 loaves and 2 fish, and walking on water. These are some of the 6 signs that are highlighted before we meet Lazarus. Jesus has also claimed to be the Son of God. That is very important detail to this story. He has claimed that God has sent him to earth to redeem the world. Could you imagine if I said, welcome, Riverway Church. My name is Emily Alexander. I believe I was sent by God to redeem all of you. That sounds crazy. And because of that claim, people want Jesus killed. And so he leaves the city of Jerusalem. He has left the city of Jerusalem very close to the city where our story takes place. He's claimed to be the Son of God. People want him dead, and so he has fled. This is where I want to pick up the story. Sisters Mary and Martha send word to Jesus that their brother Lazarus, Jesus' friend, is sick. Look what it says. We're in chapter 11, verse 1. A man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. The 2 sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend is sick. A couple things to note here. Mary and Martha had to send word. So remember, Jesus has fled. They need to tell Jesus that your friend is sick. He has left the area of Bethany, has left Jerusalem because people want him arrested and killed. Look at how Jesus responds when he receives this letter from his friends. Verse 4. But when Jesus heard about it, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. So although Jesus loved Martha, loved Mary and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. Let's break that down. Jesus acknowledges that the death of Lazarus has deeper implications. We don't necessarily know what that is yet. The disciples certainly didn't know what that meant, but Jesus gives us a little foreshadow by saying, this will not end in death. It happens so that the Son of God will receive glory, the Son of God who he claimed to be. The writer John also wants us to know that there's a deep affection going on here for Jesus and this family, Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. They are close. They are friends. But despite his great love for them, what does he do? He stays put. It's interesting. Find out your friend is hurting, and you stay put. When Jesus finally tells his disciples that we need to go, now's the time. We need to go now to Bethany where Lazarus is, a city just a few short miles from Jerusalem, the place where he's wanted. This is how his disciples, his friends respond. Verse 8, his disciples objected. Rabbi, they said, only a few days ago the people in Judea were trying to stone you. Are you going there again? I mean, essentially they're like, hello, Jesus. Going to Bethany is a death sentence for you. And of course you have to wonder, these disciples have been following Jesus. Don't you think they're maybe a little worried about the implications of their own life? If you go and we go, what's going to happen? Jesus says, verse 11, Then he said, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but now I will go and wake him." I mean, to people who just objected and said, "Rabbi, let's not go," Jesus says he's asleep. And they're like, okay, if he's sleeping, let him sleep it off, right? He's just sick. Up until this point, the disciples know that Lazarus is sick. So Jesus has to tell them, no, Lazarus is dead. And now it's time. Now it's time to go see him. We're about halfway through the story, and I would just ask us all to kind of lean in just a little bit, because we're about to reach the point in the story that I think that we can find ourselves in. Do you know when you're reading the Bible and it feels like, what is this? Try to find yourself in the story. We're about to be at the point in the story where we find ourselves in it through the hurt that we experience firsthand through the sisters of Lazarus, Mary and Martha, verse 17. When Jesus arrived at Bethany, he was told that Lazarus had already been dead in the grave for 4 days. Bethany was only a few miles down the road from Jerusalem, and many of the people had come to console Mary and Martha in their loss. When Martha got word that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary stayed in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask." A little later, it says that Mary, too, left the house to go interact with Jesus, and it tells us she said the same thing. "Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died." It's probably safe to say, while these two sisters are watching their brother move from sickness to death, they're thinking, where's Jesus? Why hasn't he come yet? Where are you, Jesus? How about you? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Have you ever asked Jesus, where are you? Has that ever been your experience? Lord, where are you in the midst of my hurting? Or how about this Mary and Martha statement? Lord, if only, if only. I think when life gets messy and hard, we're in the middle of our hurt, we're in the middle of our pain, our emotional pain, our physical pain. We respond in two ways. We wonder, Lord, where are you? Or we blame. God, if only you had been there. I've been a part of my small group now for 11 years, and we started our group before any of us had kids. But when all of our firstborns were getting to that 1-year mark, a lot of my friends, my mama friends, were having baby number 2. And although our firstborn, Maddox, was pretty easy and fun, and we sort of liked the pace at life that we were in, and so we waited. And we decided to wait a couple of years before trying again for baby number 2. But when we found out that we were pregnant with our second in 2013, our son was 3. It was like, this will be fun. He'll be excited that he's got a baby brother or a baby sister coming. And he was. We told him, you're going to be a big brother. The excitement was overwhelming to see your kid that excited. There's nothing like it. When we got to our 12-week ultrasound, there wasn't much talking, however. No heartbeat. Only news that they were sending us for further testing. Have you ever been in that situation? We have to send you for further testing. You walk away confused, but you kind of see the writing on the wall, don't you? There's not a baby in there. But it turns out we experience something called a molar pregnancy. Hang with me for a second. Essentially what that is a ball of placenta growing inside your body, filled with hormones, which means you get all of those first trimester feelings: nausea, growing belly, positive pregnancy tests. Isn't that crazy? But no baby. Eventually, that would lead to an emergency surgery on my 30th birthday. And when you're in the hospital experiencing some sort of, you're in the ER, or you're having surgery, or you're doing something, the amount of people that come in and say, "Hello, what is your name and what's your birth date?" To which I said, "My name is Emily Alexander, and today is my 30th birthday." I mean, talk about hurt and disappointment. For the entire day, I had to tell them, today is my 30th birthday. There was so much loss, so much wondering, what in the world, God? A lot of why. But a year later, we successfully delivered a baby girl who we named Marley Mack Alexander. Come on. The hand on the hip. She's got some sass, let me tell you. And it turns out that it was better timing. It was better timing than John and I could have ever planned. I have lived through his better timing in my life. What is that for you? Martha and Mary were hurting. They had their own timing. Jesus, your friend is sick. Come to us now. They had lost their brother. They believed Jesus could have done something if only he had been there just a few days before. When Jesus responds to Martha's "if only," he does so in a way that we must pay attention to. Because this exchange between Jesus and Martha has earthly implications for each one of us. Let's keep going. Verse 23. Jesus says, your brother will rise again. And Martha says, yes, he will rise. He will rise when everyone else rises on the last day. You're right, Jesus. Everyone who's gone before him, when they rise, yeah, my brother's going to rise too. And then Jesus says, and this is big. Verse 25, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never, ever die. Jesus is telling Martha that he is the resurrection. That those who put their faith and hope in Jesus will one day rise with him in their death. But he also says, I am the life. The life. This tells us that we don't have to wait until heaven for the hurt to go away or for hope to be restored. Hope in the midst of our hurting. Healing in the midst of our hurting is in the here and now. Your worship leader said we have come to experience life today. I love that. Jesus is trying to tell us something, that he is life. Jesus is not just the resurrection. He is life. As I was writing this message, I asked myself, what's one way, one practical application I could leave you with today as we try to answer our original question, how do we find God in the midst of hurt? I think it's this. We move towards him in the midst of hurt. What does that mean? We move towards him in the midst of our hurt because he is life. He is now. So we don't push our hurt down. We don't tell people, I'm fine. We don't let it consume us. We don't wonder, God, where are you? We don't blame, if only. We move towards him, believing that he is exactly where we need to be. Let's be people that move towards Jesus in the midst of hurt and see how he responds. You know what I think Jesus was doing when he was waiting to go to his friend Lazarus? I think he was spending time with God. I think he was praying. In his own grief and hurt and sadness, one of his best friends, Jesus moves towards his Father in prayer. Why do I think that? Because he tells us. As the story of Lazarus comes to an end, I want you to see a far less familiar stone rolling away moment where Jesus weeps and then turns to his Father in heaven. Verse 34 through 35. Where have you put him? He asked them. Jesus is asking them. They told him, Lord, come and see. And then what does he do? He weeps. Lord, come and see. And then Jesus wept. A few moments later, Jesus tells them to roll the stone aside. And Mary steps in and says, whoa, 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 whoa. It's been 4 days, Jesus. It is going to stink. It's written there. It's going to smell. Are we sure about what you want to do here? Here's what Jesus says. Verse 40. Didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? So they rolled the stone aside. Then Jesus looked up to the heaven and said, Father, thank you for hearing me. There it is. There's his prayer. Jesus moves towards God in his grief and hurting for his friend. Father, thank you for hearing me. Could it be that in the 2 days where he didn't go to Lazarus, Jesus spent some of that time praying for healing, praying for restoration, spending time with God, moving towards him in his hurt in this circumstance? As they rolled the stone away, Jesus commands Lazarus to come out. This is the 7th sign that the writer John highlights in his gospel. It's not just 6, it's 7. Raising his friend Lazarus from the dead. And though our deepest hurts don't always end like this kind of restoration, what Jesus shows us is that our response, his response to hurt, is to move towards the Father. He did it. We come here to be a little bit more like him. Maybe to give us even deeper assurance that he can be trusted in the hurting, to move towards him, we look at the sisters. The sisters who are just like us. They're not God. They're like us. What did they do? Let's see how they responded to the hurt. Remember that exchange that Jesus and Martha have before the stone is rolled away? Yes, he will rise when everyone else rises at the last day. Martha has no idea that Jesus will raise her brother from death to life. These sisters showed their deepest faith and trust not after Jesus comes through, but before. We can learn a lot from that, can't we? I know I can. We can learn from these sisters to move towards Jesus, not when he's proven himself to us. He's already done that. He's already done that at the cross. We can move towards him like the sisters do. Maybe before. Maybe in the midst of our hurting. Later in the book of John, the disciples tell Jesus that they do believe that he is the Son of God. And I want you to see how Jesus responds. And I want to read this text from the Message Bible, the Message version, because of its unique description of the way that Jesus responds to them saying, "We believe." Jesus answered them, "Do you finally believe? In fact, you're about to make a run for it, saving your own skins and abandoning me. I'm not abandoned, says Jesus. If you run, I'm not abandoned. The Father is with me. And I've told you all of this so that trusting me, you will be unshakable and assured, deeply at peace. In this godless world, you will continue to experience difficulties, but take heart. I've conquered the world. You want to know what's on the other side of hurt? It's peace. You are unshakable and assured in your faith, so that when you are hurting, you run towards Jesus without blame, without wonder. And on the other side is to be deeply at peace because he has conquered the world. Mary and Martha were deeply at peace in the presence of Jesus. Whether their brother was healed or raised up in heaven on the last day, they trusted Jesus with their hurt and moved towards him. I want to close today with this final truth, that God doesn't promise no trouble, no pain, no hurt. You've heard that before. But what he promises is that he'll be with us in the trouble and the pain and the hurt. He is with us, my friends. Maybe that's the only thing you came here today to hear, that he is with you. He can be trusted. What's one practical way we can find God in the midst of our hurt? We can move towards him, not push him away, not blame, but move towards him with trust, that he will be with us in the hurt. And not only be with us, but he will see us through. My friends, let's pray to Jesus, to the one who can be trusted, to the one who is with us today, who has brought life into this space today. Let's pray. Jesus, you are so good. And this book that we spent so much time in this morning is filled with stories like this, where in your humanity you show up for people. And yet in your perfection, you die the criminal's death for the purpose that we may be close to you. Be close to you someday. But we don't have to wait someday. It's here. It's now. It's today. May we move towards you, Jesus, trusting you, trusting that you are with us in the hurting. Trusting you, Jesus, that you know us. You know what we feel. You know what we need, Lord. Trusting in your plan of restoration, trusting in your plan of healing, trusting you, Jesus. Lord, thank you for who you are, the way that you've taught us to love and forgive. Help us to see people as you see people. Help us, Lord, not to leave the same way we came in, but to leave more like you. So the people that we interact with outside of these walls, Jesus, see you, Lord. Thank you for these people. Thank you for this community, rich in faith, ready to serve their community. Thank you, Jesus, for this time, I pray. Amen.